So why do we call it Good Friday? We don't call it Good Friday because it was good for Jesus. We call it Good Friday because on Friday, Jesus did something good for us by enduring something truly terrible. So what did Jesus endure? Well, I would invite you to read these passages here on the screen that I'm putting up and then returning to the video. Um, so what did Jesus endure? Jesus endured betrayal. He endured sorrow. He endured agony at pouring out his heart to the Father and having the Father tell him, "My will is not to spare you from the cross, but to send you for the cross." And Jesus endured saying yes to a difficult command from the Father. What did Jesus endure? Jesus endured whipping, mocking. Jesus endured beating and public shame. What did Jesus endure? Jesus endured injustice. He endured having the courts and the legal system turned against him unjustly to put him to death unjustly. What did Jesus endure? Jesus endured the cross. Now, of course, there's physical endurance on the cross. So one of the things that happens on the cross is that in order to breathe, because of the angle you're at, you have to pull down on the nails that are driven through your wrists and push up through the nails that are driven through your ankles. So that with each breath, Jesus had to heave himself up on the nails driven through his hands and feet in order to get a breath, and then descend back down, wait for the strength to do it again, and then pull himself up again. Every breath was torture. Jesus endured all of that. But the greatest thing that Jesus endured, as we read in the Bible, is the darkness that hid the sun, that covered the land. And in that darkness, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" That darkness is a symbol of God's judgment for sin. The Bible tells us that on the cross, Jesus, who knew no sin, became sin for us. That moment happened when the sun was hidden. And when Jesus cried out in that deep mystery, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Now we have a word for judgment. It's the word the Bible uses for God's judgment on sin, and that word is hell. And so when Jesus endured darkness on the cross, what he was doing was enduring living hell. And he endured it for us. Now, why did Jesus have to endure that hell? Because sin requires justice. So what is sin? Well, the easiest answer is sin is any failure to do what the Bible commands, whether that's by explicitly disobeying it or by failing to actually act out a positive commandment like love your neighbor. But you can think of it this way too. Sin is every single form of death. So when I sin, what am I doing? I am killing my relationship to God. I am killing my relationship with the people I am sinning against. Sin is death. Lying breaks relationships and brings death. Murder breaks relationship and brings death. Theft breaks relationships and brings death. Sin is a destruction of people, and it's a rebellion against God in his kingdom. It is to break the law. And when the Bible talks about hell, it's not talking about it in terms of this terrible torture. It's talking about it in terms of strict justice. What do sins, that is law breaking, what does it deserve? It deserves judgment. And that judgment is hell. Now, are you going to be able to endure God's justice for sins? Think about the relationships that you have. Think about the sins that you commit. Think about the wake of bodies and relationships that all of us, no matter how good we are, have in our wake. The people who we know in our past who we have mistreated, who no longer want anything to do with us, who don't speak well of us because of how we've treated them. Think about the trail of tears that we have left behind just from living life over our years. Think about the judgment that should bring. Can you endure it? Think about idolatry. Think about thanklessness. Think about rejection of God. Can you bear justice for that? No. So how are you going to live with God forever? Well, the solution is God sends his son, Jesus, to live in our place and to die in our place. So on the cross, Jesus endured hell for you and for me. Jesus endured it so that we could be saved. So what does that mean? Well, it means fundamentally that justice is satisfied. For God's people, when we look to Jesus in faith, when we trust in him for salvation, what we are saying is that we trust that Jesus died in my place, that the sins that I committed, he bore the justice for, that he experienced wrath so that I did not have to, and that I trust him to save me. That's what we're saying. And it also means that Jesus understands. Jesus understands what it means to be in darkness. Jesus understands what it means to go through betrayal and injustice and to suffer and to die. Jesus understands. So not only has Jesus died in my place and suffered in my place, he can be with me as I walk through those things with the kind of empathy and sympathy that only one who has truly been there can. So Good Friday is good because not only does it mean justice is satisfied, it means also that when we walk with the resurrected Jesus, we are also walking with the God who knows what it is to walk in the valley of the shadow of death and who walks with us. And that is why Good Friday is good.